On the Senate floor Thursday, Senator Mazie Hirono voiced her support for the DISCLOSE Act, which is an election contribution transparency bill. Hirono knocked dark money, saying, quote, "Our country is awash in undisclosed money that is subverting the will of the American people." President Biden on Tuesday urged Republicans to join Democrats in supporting the legislation.
The senator from Hawaii.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleague from Rhode Island, Senator Whitehouse, for his long and strong advocacy for cleaning up the scourge of dark money in our country. Our country was built on the founding principles of democracy, where every person has a say. A democracy where the American people can make their voices heard in free and fair elections, and we, the people, can decide the direction of our country. But in 2010, the Roberts Court, in an obvious act of judicial activism, struck down corporate campaign contribution restrictions found in the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act. Suddenly, the Supreme Court said that corporations are people who had First Amendment constitutional rights to make campaign contributions. This decision opened the floodgates to billions of dollars of dark money to influence our elections, our courts, and our thinking on issues from gun safety to abortion. When the Supreme Court held that political speech by a corporation is protected by the First Amendment, it left for Congress just the narrow authority to take action to require disclosure of donor names. After knockdown, drag-out negotiations in the U.S. House in 2010, I was there, the House passed a disclosure bill only to see it fail in the Senate very narrowly without the support of a single Republican. Back then, we had the chance to require political spending disclosure so that the American people could see who was contributing millions to influence election outcomes. So here we are, more than a decade later, and now it's not millions, but billions of dollars flowing undisclosed into races across the country. Our country is awash in undisclosed money that is subverting the will of the American people. When 85% of the American people support reproductive freedom, 65% of American people support gun safety, and 63% of the American people support protecting the right to vote, and Senate Republicans are preventing us from even having a legislative debate on the floor on these issues, what does that tell you? It tells you that too many elected officials are no longer answering to the people, but instead to the secret donors and corporations who are funding their campaigns. But it's not just elected officials that have been influenced. Mega corporations and the ultra-wealthy have spent millions to stack our courts. One dark money group already spent more than $30 million in total on the nominations of Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett to the United States Supreme Court, where they sit, in my view, busily overturning precedents such as Roe v. Wade. For the sake of our democracy, we need to get rid of the anonymous spending influencing our elections and our courts. That is a goal that everyone should be able to get behind, regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. In fact, many of my Republican colleagues agree. The senior senator from Iowa said, dark money is, quote, attacking the independence of the judiciary, end quote. Another said dark money is, quote, sowing public distrust in the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, end quote. There is bipartisan agreement to limit dark money, but sadly, we know Republicans too often say one thing, then do another, because not a single one of them so far has voiced support for even considering the DISCLOSE Act, which we will be voting to advance today. A bill that would increase transparency and accountability in political spending. A bill that would do the very thing that some leading Republicans have called for. When given the chance, I hope my Republican colleagues will step up for the American people and not their special interest donors? We shall see. We cannot accept a country where billionaires and corporations can secretly buy our elections, choose our leaders, and determine the fate of our country. Mr. President, I yield back.
The senator